Hi there, this is Pádraig here at Payroll Matters in Ireland, and today I want to talk to you about statutory annual leave entitlements. Just so that I make myself abundantly clear from the outset, statutory annual leave entitlements are the minimum that an employer can award based on certain conditions being fulfilled. Many employers award more than a minimum statutory annual leave entitlements, and we do not deal with these here with this calculator. An employer can award more, but not any less, as outlined in our calculator, regardless of whether employees are full-time, part-time, casual or temporary. They are all entitled to annual leave under the Organisation of Working Time Act 1997. Under this Act, the employer can decide the timing of an employee's annual leave, providing the required notice is given, and also taking into consideration the requirements of the business and the employee's health and well-being. Annual leave carryover in Ireland can be a grey area for both employers and employees, especially if the contracts of employment don't outline the business position. Carryover statutory leave accrues throughout the year, while the default statutory leave year begins on the 1st of April and runs to the 31st of March the following year. Many employers select to follow the calendar year instead. Leave accrued in the leave year should normally be taken during the 12-month period. However, Section 20 of the Organisation of Working Time Act provides that, with the consent of the employee, annual leave can be taken within the period of 6 months after the end of that leave year. As such, if both employer and employee agree, annual leave can be carried over but must be taken in the first 6 months of the new leave year. However, that 6 months is based on the statutory leave year rather than the calendar year, and only applies to the statutory minimum annual leave. Each year, as we move towards the summer months, it is reasonable to assume that there will be an increase in annual leave requests, and therefore employers need to examine and revise their annual leave policies as appropriate to ensure they remain valid and compliant with company policy and procedures. Indeed, we here on Payroll Matters in Ireland also note a rise in the number of queries and questions we get about statutory annual leave entitlements. Unused annual leave is a topical issue for many employers across Ireland at the moment. It is best practice for employers to be as flexible as possible to accommodate requests. Many employers are now wondering what the best way is to treat employees who have high volumes of annual leave accrued. In our experience at Payroll Matters in Ireland, most employers allow their employees to carry a maximum of 5 days forward from 1 year to the next. This annual leave carried forward usually has to be taken within the first 3 months of the new year. This is where you need a robust annual leave time-off policy. Without it, your employees may be concerned they will lose annual leave. They may expect to be paid in lieu of annual leave, which, may I add, is in breach of the Act and is illegal. Or they may request to carry forward large amounts of annual leave days. Employers sometimes struggle with how to manage multiple holiday leave requests fairly when everyone wants annual leave at the same time, and with what's the best way to keep track of all these annual leave requests. What if employers really don't want people booking holidays around Christmas? Or maybe they want the opposite and need their employees to save some holidays for a Christmas shutdown. The employer determines the timing of an employee's annual leave, taking into consideration work and personal requirements. Employers should check if there is a build-up of unused annual leave entitlements. As an employer, if you're trying to get to grips with managing staff holidays, you've likely got a lot of questions on your mind. One option available to employers to deal with this issue is to use the Organisation of Working Time Act 1997. This Act entitles all employees up to 20 days paid annual leave during any given leave year. Under Section 20, Paragraph 1 of the Act, employers have the discretion to decide when their employees take their annual leave. When doing this, their business needs to account for its requirements. It is strongly advised that any businesses relying on Section 20, Paragraph 1 to get employees to take their annual leave should consult with their employees at least 1 month in advance of the annual leave being taken. The employer needs to take into account the need for the employee to reconcile work and any family responsibilities. The statutory leave year runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. As many employers use the calendar year January to December instead of the statutory leave year for administrative reasons, Payroll Matters in Ireland are seeking to have the legislation reviewed to also take account of the calendar year and to legislative changes already made to our tax year, changing it from the 6th of April to the 5th of April the following year to the calendar year. Having a different leave year than April to March does not affect your statutory leave entitlements. Here are some tips on holiday management best practice in line with Section 20, Paragraph 1 of the Organisation of Working Act 1997. Have a holiday policy. An annual leave policy that establishes your approach to annual leave and sets any restrictions around when your employees can and can't request leave and how they should request it is the best first step you can take to avoid holiday management headaches. A holiday policy will let your employees know what to expect when requesting leave and will demonstrate the steps you have in place to maintain fairness. If you choose to implement any of the following steps, it's a good idea to document these in your holiday policy. Allocating leave on a first-come, first-served basis. Operating a first-come, first-served policy around holiday requests is usually the fairest way to manage a situation where multiple employees might want to take holidays at the same time. If you do adopt this approach, ensure you clearly indicate this in your holiday policy so all your staff know they need to request leave dates as far in advance as possible. Set limits on the number of employees who can take leave at the same time. For customer-facing departments and retail outlets, you'll always need a minimum number of employees working at any time to satisfy customer demand. If this is the case, you should set limits on how many people can be on holiday from a certain department at any one time, so you can be sure you'll always be adequately resourced. Specify any time frames where taking leave will not be permitted. If you have a particularly busy period, such as Christmas for example, when you really need a full workforce, you can restrict staff from requesting leave during this time. Specify any days when holidays must be taken. Alternatively, perhaps your business shuts down between Christmas and New Year, and you want all your employees to take holiday leave over that period. In this case, you'll want to use your holiday policy to indicate to staff that they will need to reserve some of their annual leave allowance for during this period. Proactively monitor holiday outstanding. It's a good idea to review holidays remaining at regular intervals throughout the year. This way, you identify whether you have too many staff with substantial amounts of holidays remaining, which could result in lots of clashing requests towards the end of the year. It can be helpful to remind your staff how many days they have left at intervals throughout the year and encourage them to utilise their remaining balances. All employees, whether they are full-time, part-time, temporary or casual, earn annual leave entitlements from the time they start work. Most employees are entitled to 4 weeks, 20 days, paid annual leave per year. Calculating your annual leave. There are 3 ways to calculate your annual leave entitlement, depending on time worked. Employees' holiday entitlements should be calculated by one of the following methods. You can use whichever method gives the greatest or biggest entitlement. Our calculator does all the calculations for each method in the background and gives the best result. This calculator can answer all these questions and many more questions about annual leave. Before I go into my simple guide on how to use the calculator to get answers to your questions, can I request anyone watching that has not watched one of my previous videos that, so as to keep up to date with Payroll Matters in Ireland, please hit that subscribe button. Subscribing will cost you absolutely nothing and may help us at Payroll Matters in Ireland, the page and group, to help PAYE workers with their questions on pay, PAYE, income tax returns, tax back, tax credits and many more pay and work related issues, to continue making helpful videos like this one on all types of payroll PAYE issues and on step-by-step Revenue My Account guides. Please just don't skip our request for you to subscribe to our channel. We do really need your help. Okay, enough of that for now. It is not obligatory to subscribe in order to get all the help we provide. to PAYE workers, either on here or on our Facebook page and group. We have been doing all of this for free regardless of whether you subscribe or not, and we will continue to do so for as long as we can. However, we cannot guarantee that we will be in a position to continue with this work indefinitely without your subscription to this channel, which, I repeat, costs you nothing, apart from the little effort of logging into your Gmail account, going onto our channel and hitting that subscribe button. If you don't have a Gmail account, it is very easy to set one up for yourself. Method 1 to calculate your annual leave entitlement. As our calculator does this automatically, you don't necessarily need to remember all the details of each method. If you have worked at least 1,365 hours in a leave year, you are entitled to the maximum of 4 working weeks paid annual leave, unless it is a leave year in which you change employment. If you have worked for at least 8 months, you are entitled to an unbroken period of 2 weeks annual leave. This means you can get 2 weeks off in a row. Please note that you cannot use this method if you changed employment during the leave year. Method 2. Calculate 1/3 of a working week for each calendar month in which you worked at least 117 hours. Method 3. Calculate 8% of the hours you worked in the leave year, subject to a maximum of 4 weeks. To reiterate, if more than one of the preceding methods at 1, 2 or 3 above is applicable, the employee shall be entitled to whichever method provides the greater entitlement. However, the maximum statutory annual leave entitlement of an employee in a leave year is 4 of his or her normal working weeks. So, in the first box of the calculator, is this your first or only employment in Ireland in this leave year? If you work for more than one employer since the beginning of the year, then enter No in the drop-down menu. In the second box of the calculator, number of weeks worked since the beginning of the year. If you want to know your leave entitlement for the whole year, enter 52, or the number of weeks remaining in the leave year since you started. If you want to know what you have accumulated to date, enter the number of weeks worked to date from the beginning of the annual leave year. There are a number of options here depending on the information you are looking for. For your full year entitlement, enter 52. If, for example, you are leaving the job and want to know how many hours holiday pay you are due, then enter the number of weeks worked since the beginning of the year, together with any extra hours worked since the beginning of the year, and then subtract the number of hours annual leave you have already taken, if any, from the answer you get in the number of hours annual leave entitlement as calculated below in the box. If you start a job in August, for instance, and the number of weeks left until the end of the year is 20, then enter 20. You will not be able to use this facility if you do not know the number of hours you will have worked by the end of the year. In the next box of the calculator, enter additional hours worked excluding overtime since the beginning of the year. Additional hours would be a case where, for example, you are contracted to work 15 hours a week, but many weeks end up working 20 hours, for example, excluding unpaid breaks. The next 2 boxes are where the calculations are made, and the most favourable method of the 3 calculations is chosen based on the information provided. The last box are the types of protected leave. The calculation is given both in hours and weeks. The weeks are derived from your weekly contracted hours and take account of all the hours worked. The calculator is very useful at the end of the year for determining the additional holidays a person is entitled to for working extra hours over and above their contracted hours. Annual leave and other types of protected leave. Annual leave is not affected by other types of statutory leave. That means leave provided for by law, also known as protected leave. So, when calculating your holiday entitlement, your employer should include all the hours you worked, including time spent on annual leave, certified sick leave, maternity leave, parental leave, paternity leave, parents' leave, force majeure leave, adoptive leave, or the first 13 weeks of carers' leave. Holiday pay. Holiday pay pay for annual leave must be paid at your normal weekly rate. If your pay changes from week to week, for example because of commission or bonus payments, your holiday pay is the average of your pay, excluding overtime pay, over the 13 weeks before you take holidays. Additional hours paid at your normal rate is included. Overtime is when you are paid at a premium rate like time and a quarter, time and a half, or double time. Part-time employees. Generally, annual leave for part-time is calculated using method 3. This means you can get 8% of your hours worked. If you work full-time for some months and part-time for the rest of the year, you should calculate the leave for the full-time and the part-time periods of work separately. Agency employees. If you are an agency worker, the party who pays your wages, the employment agency or client company, is the employer for the purposes of the Organisation of Working Time Act 1997 and is responsible for providing your annual leave entitlements. Annual leave and sick leave. What if I get sick while I'm on annual leave? If you are sick while you are on annual leave, you should get a medical certificate from your GP or your doctor as soon as possible to cover the days you are sick. Give the medical certificate to your employer as soon as you return to work. This way, the sick days will not count as annual leave and you can take your annual leave at a later date. Your employer cannot make you take annual leave for time you are on certified sick leave. What happens to my annual leave when I am off sick? Your statutory entitlement, that's your legal entitlement to annual leave, continues to build up when you are on sick leave, as long as you have a medical certificate. Carrying over your annual leave. Carrying over your holidays accumulated during sick leave. If you are on long-term sick leave and cannot take your annual leave due to illness, you can carry it over for up to 15 months after the end of the year it was earned. If you leave your job within these 15 months, you should get payment instead of the leave you did not take due to illness. These protections are set out in an amendment to the Workplace Relations Act 2015. Leaving your job. If you are leaving a job without taking all of your annual leave you are entitled to, your employer must pay you for the days you have not taken. Layoff or short-time working. During layoff or short-time working, you are still an employee of the company and your contract of employment remains valid. You do not build up annual leave during layoff, but you are entitled to take the annual leave that you built up before being laid off. Remote working. Employees still accrue annual leave in the same way once they are working their normal hours, regardless of where they are working from. It is illegal for employers to pay an allowance instead of the minimum statutory annual leave entitlement, except where the employment ends and the employee has earned unused annual leave days. If an employee is leaving a job, the employer should pay him or her for any outstanding annual leave and public holidays. Payment in lieu of statutory annual leave. Some employers find it easier to operate schemes whereby a weekly allowance is included in the employee's salary in respect of annual leave pay, and then the employee could take unpaid annual leave as they pleased. This saves employers from doing calculations which can be tricky, particularly for flexible workers. However, the Labour Court ruled these schemes are not in line with the Act and hence are in breach of the legal requirements, as in the Labour Court cases of Mycoing and Motovilla, DWT 54/2007, and PD Saigon Limited versus Coalic, DWT 34/2010. The EU Court of Justice has gone further in the case of Federatie Nederlandse Vakkenbegen versus Stat de Nederlanden, 2006, ECR 1/3423. In this case, the ECJ, now referred to as the CJEU, ruled that policies whereby employees can opt for an allowance taken in lieu of their leave are precluded by Article 7 of the European Working Time Directive on the basis that such schemes create incentives not to take leave and hence are illegal. Use it or lose it. Some employers operate a use it or lose it policy whereby leave must be taken within the leave year, and if an employee fails to take it, then they simply lose the leave. These policies were reviewed in 2 cases before the EU Court of Justice in 2018, Kreuziger versus Land Berlin C619/16 and Max Planck Gesellschaft versus Shimizu C/684-16. The CJEU found that while this policy is permissible, employers must be able to show that the leave was voluntarily not taken, i.e. it was the employee's choice. This can be quite difficult, as it is generally accepted that the employment relationship is not one of equals and that the employer tends to have much more power than the employee. If an employee referred the issue to the WRC, their employer would need to demonstrate they exercised due diligence in enabling the employee to use their leave. This means an employer seeking to apply use it or lose it should have a well-known annual leave policy that states that employees cannot carry over their annual leave alongside some sort of system whereby employees are actively encouraged to take accrued annual leave throughout the year. Workplace Relations Commission, the WRC, heard the case of a hospital porter being awarded €10,000 in compensation for the HSE's failure to let him take his full annual leave over the course of a decade. The health service still owed the man more than 10 weeks' holidays when the Workplace Relations Commission, WRC, heard the case. At one point he had built up a legal entitlement to over 5 months paid time off, the adjudicating officer found. Michael Moore's complaint under the Organisation of Working Time Act against the HSE Midwest University of Limerick Hospitals Group was upheld in a decision published by the WRC. Mr. Moore, who has worked at a site in the UL Hospitals Group since 1986, gave evidence that at any time he saw time off, he was asked who would cover for him. As there was no cover, he would not get his full annual leave entitlement, he told the Commission. He said his manager told him there was nothing he could do. Making a complaint. If you think your holiday entitlement is wrong, try speaking informally to your employer. If you cannot resolve the problem informally, you can complain to the Workplace Relations Commission. You should apply using the WRC's online complaint forum. You must make your complaint within 6 months of the dispute or the disagreement happening. The time limit may be extended for a further 6 months, but only if you have a reasonable cause which prevented you bringing your complaint within the normal time limit. Contact information, Workplace Relations Commission, Information and Customer Service, O'Brien Road, Carlow, R93 E920. Your next step is to complete the actual calculator, which you will find on bppm.ie website, which stands for Boyle Payroll Project Management. On the Payroll Resources tab, click on Holiday Entitlement Calculator.php to start using the calculator. Good luck with it. If you have questions, you can ask them in the comments or on the Facebook group Payroll Matters in Ireland. Please help us produce more helpful videos by subscribing to the channel. We really need your help, and as I said already, it costs you nothing to subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time.